There comes a moment in every woman's life when she looks at the relationships around her, romantic, platonic, professional, and thinks, why do I feel like I'm constantly overextending? Why do I give so much and still feel empty? If you've ever felt that, you're not alone. And it's not because you're broken. It's because somewhere along the way, you were taught to prioritize connection over self-respect. But here's the truth. Self-respect is the foundation. It's the boundary, the filter, the quiet inner compass that protects your energy, your dignity, and your peace. And when you begin to rebuild your life around self-respect, every relationship you have, every single one, starts to transform. This video isn't about blaming others or building walls. It's about soft power, that grounded, rooted knowing of who you are and what you will never again abandon yourself to tolerate. Let's talk about what happens when self-respect stops being optional and starts becoming the standard. First, let's talk about what a lack of self-respect looks like. It's not always loud. Sometimes it looks like silence, like shrinking, like rationalizing someone else's bad behavior because confronting it would risk losing them. It looks like saying yes when your body is screaming no, like apologizing for having standards, like putting yourself last in the name of love, loyalty, or likability. We're taught that being a good woman means being agreeable, being understanding, making it work. But if being good means betraying your boundaries, then what you're practicing isn't love, it's abandonment. And the first person being abandoned is you. When you lack self-respect, you start to confuse being chosen with being valued. And those two things, not the same. You can be chosen for your beauty, your effort, your availability. But being valued, that's deeper. That's someone seeing your worth and rising to meet it. And if you don't see that worth in yourself first, you'll accept relationships that reflect your fears instead of your truth. So what changes when self-respect enters the room? Everything. You stop explaining your boundaries and start embodying them. You stop chasing closure and start choosing clarity. You stop performing for love and start becoming a mirror that reflects back someone's intentions, not their potential. Let me give you a real example. There was a woman I knew, successful, kind, intuitive, but constantly drained by her relationships. Friends who only called when they needed something. A partner who loved her presence, but dismissed her voice. She was always trying to earn the connection. And because she never wanted to be seen as difficult, she stayed quiet, accommodating, low maintenance. Until one day she reached her breaking point. It wasn't a dramatic blow-up. It was quiet, still. She just got tired of second-guessing herself, tired of feeling depleted after every interaction, tired of wondering why she was so easy to call when someone needed a favor, but invisible when she needed support. And that's when she started doing something radical, honoring her own energy. She said no without explaining. She stopped initiating with people who made her feel like a burden. She voiced her needs without flinching. She stopped asking for emotional crumbs and started sitting with her own fullness. And slowly, everything shifted. Some people drifted away. Others rose to meet her at her new standard. But the most powerful shift? She felt like herself again. Not the edited, palatable version, the whole one. That's what self-respect does. It brings you back home to yourself. Now let's talk about how to get there. Step 1. Identify where you're overcompensating. Start by asking yourself, where do I feel resentment right now? Where do I feel like I'm giving more than I'm receiving? Resentment is often a clue that your boundaries have been crossed, or that you never communicated them in the first place. It's not a flaw. It's a flag, a signal that something needs to be recalibrated. Maybe it's the friend who always turns the conversation back to themselves, or the partner who only shows up when it's convenient, or the family member who dismisses your feelings every time you speak up. Self-respect begins with telling the truth about what hurts and what no longer fits. Step 2. Create micro boundaries. We often think boundaries have to be these big declarations. I'm done. I'm cutting you off. But the most powerful boundaries are often small, consistent actions. It's the decision to take a beat before responding to a text that triggers you. It's saying, I'm not available tonight, but thank you for thinking of me, instead of rearranging your life to avoid disappointing someone. It's leaving a conversation that turns toxic instead of staying and hoping it shifts. Boundaries aren't about being unkind. They're about being clear. And clarity, that's a form of kindness to yourself and to others. Step 3. Stop managing other people's feelings. This one's hard, especially if you were raised to be the peacemaker, the fixer, the one who smooths everything over. But here's the truth. It's not your job to make others comfortable at the expense of your truth. You are not responsible for how someone reacts to your boundary. You are only responsible for setting it with honesty and love. The people who truly care about you will adjust. The ones who only cared about their access to you won't. And that clarity is a gift. Here's something else to remember. Self-respect isn't about control. It's about alignment, about making choices that honor your worth, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's lonely, even when it's not understood. Because self-respect is often quiet at first. It's walking away from the situations where you used to beg to be seen. It's no longer performing. It's letting your silence speak louder than your arguments ever could. And yes, some people will call it selfish, cold, too much. But pay attention to who says that. It's usually the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries in the first place. Self-respect will cost you certain relationships, but it will return you to yourself. And that is a trade worth making every single time. Now let's talk about how self-respect transforms your relationships, not just your self-image. When you start honoring yourself, your standards rise. And with that rise, the dynamics around you start to shift. You stop entertaining conversations that go nowhere. You stop confusing mixed signals for emotional depth. You stop auditioning for love. You start attracting people who speak your language, respect, clarity, and presence. In your romantic life, this means you don't chase, you observe, you don't overgive, you reciprocate, you don't wait for them to change, you decide if they align. In your friendships, this means you stop being the emotional dumpster. You start having mutual support, reciprocity, real talk. No more codependency masked as closeness. In your family dynamics, this means you stop over-functioning. You stop being the one who holds it all together, even when it's breaking you. You start allowing people to take responsibility for themselves, because when you respect yourself, you stop trying to be everything to everyone and start choosing peace over performance. Self-respect also changes your inner relationship. You start trusting your gut again. You stop outsourcing your worth to someone else's opinion. You begin to feel safe inside your own choices, even the hard ones. You don't need 10 people to agree with you before you walk away from something that's draining you. You don't need permission to rest. You don't need validation to take up space. You begin to understand that the most sacred relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. And from that place, everything else flows. The love, the alignment, the freedom. It all starts within. So if you're in a season right now where you feel like people don't see you, hear you, or value you the way you deserve, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, Where have I been abandoning myself in the name of being liked? Because you don't have to become smaller to be loved. You don't have to water yourself down to be accepted. You don't have to perform for peace. You are allowed to choose yourself again and again without guilt. And the more you do, the more your relationships will reflect the respect you've built inside. That's the power of self-respect. It's not loud. It's not showy. It's steady. It's sovereign. And once you taste it, you never want to go back. If this message speaks to you, you're in the right place. Subscribe to this channel and stay close. We go deep here, not for attention, but for transformation. Because this isn't just about relationships. It's about coming home to yourself. And when you do, everyone in your life will either rise to meet you there or quietly fade into the past where they belong.